I'm muted right now.
Yeah, no worries.
What's up, everybody? Bring. Oh, you are in here, Stacks. Good. I didn't see you down at the bottom. Sorry.
Hello.
Hey.
How you doing?
All right. Again, I'm going to be messing with stuff for the next few minutes, but you can
No worries.
entertain people with your charisma.
Or lack thereof.
I wasn't going to say that.
I mean, it is entertaining to watch someone stumble through a lack of charisma sometimes.
I can't find this link. Long time since seeing you two live. I missed the romance.
Oh, thank you so much. I missed the romance too.
Romance is still there, but
that's true. We did hang out together in Ohio. What was that? 2 weeks ago now? Week and a half ago?
I think it was longer than that, wasn't it?
I don't know how time works sometimes. I feel like it's been. It was like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. Let me just pull this.
Hold on. Let me adjust the lighting real quick. I'll be right back.
Hey, everybody. I'll be messing with stuff for the next few minutes and trying to see how many people we can pull in. And I've also got to change something on the camera. So I'll be right back.
Hello. But yeah, no, it's been a little while since me and Josiah went live together. I mean, we did go live for like an hour last week, but certainly not as regular as we used to. We'll start on time at 5:30. We're just kind of hanging out for a little while, at least for the next 7 minutes, just letting people come in before we get started. We're mostly going to be talking about Trump today, as you know, every political conversation for the last, what's it been now, like 8 years, 10 years maybe, has been. Jeez, it's been a lot. When did he first like run for president? Was it like 2016 when he announced his, or 2015 since he announced, and we haven't been able to shut up about him since? We'd like to, but it's never gonna, that's not gonna stop. 2015, yeah. Hold on one moment. I'll be right back. It's just gonna be 2 blank cameras for 30 seconds. One sec.
The Messiah is here. Let's see. No, I'll take Messiah. I'm fine with that. Got about 5 minutes before the whole thing properly starts. Got Staxium's with us. What are we talking about here? Well, we were going to just ponder politics in general, because again, I'm trying to do like the regular live stream events because I've missed that. And hopefully I have like the opportunity to talk to and debate with people who disagree with me. In this case, though, we've got a specific topic, which is the Destiny versus Piers Morgan versus Tommy Lauren, the 2v1 over Trump v. Biden. So that's what we're going to talk about.
What's the latest poll? Is it time to panic? Is it poll versus Donald Trump and Biden? I think last time I checked, Trump is barely ahead of Biden, like 4 points, 3 points or something like that. When we're looking at dissatisfaction for like approval ratings. But I haven't seen like a head-to-head poll lately. Are you up to date on that, Josiah?
I thought I saw something today
Mm-hmm.
that said, but it was about approval rating. It was,
Yeah.
I saw the headline, something like Trump was 11 points on was ahead 11 points on approval rating, which really doesn't mean that much given that he's actually not the president. So it's easy to have high approval of a guy who has no real responsibility.
I'm seeing right now 6 point lead, which is
but you got to look
spooky.
at the aggregate data too, because like Quinnipiac had Biden up by 4 points and stuff like that.
For sure.
Hey, thank you for your collaboration with Luke. You're welcome. It was fun. So Luke flew in from Austin, Texas, and he collaborated here with me in Charlotte. And it was good. He got to meet some friends here, meet my girlfriend, and then he flew back. So most of the videos are going to be on his channel just because I only needed to record one for the day. I didn't have the energy for it, but I think we pumped out like 4 or 5 videos for him, and they're on his channel. I think all of them now at this point. So let's see.
Is it time to panic, though, to answer your question? I would say there is a less than I do think that Biden has a higher chance of winning than Trump. I would probably give the percentage, which, by the way, no real expertise on this, maybe like a 30% chance that Trump will win. That's still fucking terrifying. You know, like that's a substantial percentage that democracy might fall. And I don't feel like I'm being hyperbolic anymore.
It's definitely super gross that it's this close.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think for the foreseeable future, we won't have a blowout election anyway. I think like for the time being, those things are like pretty far behind us.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick says, haven't seen a live with Stacks in months. Happy to see Josiah's channel doing so well. He's one of the best.
Yeah. You've been exploding. I mean, we used to go live pretty regularly, like once every month or once every week or so for like a few months. And then you just exploded in popularity and left me behind.
Mm-hmm. No, that's precisely what it is. So what's important to know, folks, what you should take away from this is when you achieve a certain level of success, it's paramount that you ditch the dead weight in your social life. No, it was because I was working 3 jobs, trying to have a love life, trying to have a social life, trying to go to the gym. And you didn't watch any of my YouTube content. So I thought, what's the point?
I watch your YouTube content all the time. What are you talking about?
Yeah, let's see.
You keep saying that as if I don't consistently message you like, hey, look at this cool thing
nobody can hear you. By the way, how is Stacks' audio before we dive into this?
Is it doing all right? By the way, he doesn't watch any of my stuff on TikTok, and he just goes, I don't have a TikTok.
I don't have TikTok. I don't.
I did a good impression of you right before you did.
You didn't sound nearly distinguished or sophisticated enough, and you don't have tuberculosis like I.
That's true.
Right now.
It's true.
Scoopy Duder, yo, Destiny's Piers Morgan debate was a effing joke. LMFAO, he did well, but holy hell, it was annoying to see Tommy Lauren half answer everything why they both grilled Destiny. Yeah, I was really proud of him I thought he knocked it out of the park. But yes, it was a 2v1. It was basically Gavin Newsom versus DeSantis, and Piers Morgan with Sean Hannity. It was really pathetic on Morgan's part. Okay, so I want to share the screen and I want to test the audio, and then Stacks, you have to tell me if you see or if you hear an echo.
Okay, yeah. We've had this issue in the past.
Yeah. So what happens when I do this? Do you hear an echo?
Nope.
What if I do this?
I do.
You do hear an echo?
You hear an echo yourself.
Oh my gosh. Wait. Does the rest of
figure this out?
Does the rest of chat hear an echo?
Can I hear? Yeah. I can hear an echo.
Yeah, but I don't care about you. I'm asking about the rest of chat.
Okay.
Because you already gave your answer. Does the rest of chat hear an echo? You all just let me know. Yes. Okay. So Faith hears it.
Mhm.
Okay. So now we got to do something else.
I feel like
What if I do this?
we've done this probably 10,000 times.
What if I do this?
No echo. No echo. I don't
Cool.
think. Let's ask chat real quick if they can hear an echo at this
What about
point.
now?
Because it sounds fine now to
What
me.
yeah.
But really, who cares about my opinion, right? That's what
Precisely.
Josiah tells me all the time.
Exactly.
He just calls me out of the blue and he's just like, remember, no one cares about your opinion. And I'm like, that was so harsh. I barely hear you and I am at full volume. Me? I can turn up my
It's gone. Okay. They said it's gone, and that's all that matters. And then you say something again.
if I'm quiet, people should let me know.
Testing.
Someone
Okay.
said I barely hear you, but I don't know who you is.
Is you me or is you Stacks?
I really want them to say you. You is you.
Makes me think of that Soldier Boy song from back in the day.
Soldier
That's
Boy,
for
tell 'em.
Josiah. I see. What about now?
That I can hear you a lot better now.
Cool. Okay. So we're gonna dive into it,
Quite
folks.
loud,
Here's
actually.
what?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Just turn
So
it down a little bit.
So here's what we're going to do. This is, again, 35 minutes. I have not actually seen the whole thing. I stopped at Biden v. Trump because that's really all I care about with respect to domestic politics, just beating the Republicans. Probably a little too single-minded, but I make no apologies for it. So this will be a mystery. So this
We're
is Piers
strictly
Morgan.
partisan here.
Yes, we are, unapologetically so. This is Piers Morgan versus Destiny, and Tommy Lauren is also on the Piers Morgan side. And I will pause this intermittently to weigh in. And Stacks, you just say pause as well, and I'll pause it for you. Okay? All right, here we go.
Sounds good.
Donald Trump's improbable return to the White House took another huge step forward at the weekend as he crushed Nikki Haley in the Republican primary in her home state of South Carolina. The former president didn't even need to turn up for the results, choosing instead to give another one of his barnstorming rallies.
Okay, see, like right out the gate, I have issues with this.
The framing is really weird already because no one thought that he wouldn't beat Haley.
Yeah, and by the way, he didn't crush her. He won by 60%. It's a decisive victory, but it's not like 92. You know what's funny? Biden won South Carolina by like 97%.
Hold on one second. My cat just walked into the room. By the way, my cat's name is Joey. After
That's
the president.
A loud ass cat.
I know, he's so obnoxious.
Just throw him out of the room. No, you can keep the cat there.
You want to bring him
cat? No, wait. You leave the cat here. Put the headphones on the cat, and then you just walk out.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Unbelievable. It's wildly unprofessional. He gets one job. And he can't even do that right. Unbelievable. Well, while we wait for him, let's see how everybody else is doing. We're not even 30 seconds in this damn thing, and Piers Morgan says something stupid. All right, are you back?
I'm sorry, that was deeply unprofessional.
Unbelievable. Okay, so technically, even though I know a lot of people say there's not one, there is a Democratic primary. Dean Phillips is running against President Biden, and he lost, and Biden won 97%. That's a blowout. Donald Trump has a quasi-incumbency advantage too, since he's a former president, the most recent Republican former president, and it's only 60-40. I don't know. I think the framing, not just from Morgan, by the way, if you look at Twitter, this was Kristen Welker on NBC's Meet the Press. She was like almost like reading clickbait titles back to back on Sunday. She was like, this is Kristen Welker from NBC, Meet the Press, not Fox News. She's like, so Donald Trump destroys Nikki Haley in a total blowout with facts and it's like, can you imagine if those figures were the case for Biden? Would they be describing it as a blowout? Because
they were the case for Biden because you just made that point, right? That he made a blowout during the primaries.
No. But if it had only been 60-40 for Biden and not 90,
for sure,
would they be framing it as a blowout for Biden? I don't think so.
Biden barely scrapes by as the incumbent. And
loser senile Biden barely squeaks by because he's a senile loser. That's how it would be.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous and overtly
flattering, I think, for Trump.
For sure. 60-40 is not, it's a decisive victory, but it's not an overwhelming, it's not the type of response that you would expect from someone who's already been president. Like the incumbent advantage is usually extremely large, especially in primaries of your own party. We saw that with Biden, and Biden is widely disliked by most of his party historically, like more so than most other presidents. And even he was able to get like a 95-5 victory. Trump got 60-40 from his own party. That's
not a
pretty
blowout.
crazy.
But anyway, I digress. We're only 30 seconds in and we're complaining this much. This is not
true. We did not.
We're going to get 5
in.
minutes in. Yeah.
Rally's speeches to the Conservative Party Action Conference. And as usual, he didn't hold back.
A vote for Trump is your ticket back to freedom. It's your passport out of tyranny. And it's your only escape from Joe Biden and his gang's fast track to hell. And in many ways, we're living in hell right now.
Well, nationwide polls suggest Trump is on track to beat President Biden in November's election. So can anything stop him? And what will Trump the sequel mean for America and the world? Here's a debate with one of Trump's most vocal critics, the hugely influential YouTube political commentator Destiny, and the host of Fearless on Outkick, Tommy Lahren. Okay, Destiny, you voted for Joe Biden last time. I think it's safe to assume you won't be voting for Donald Trump this time, but are you comfortable voting for Biden given the state that he now appears to be in?
Every time somebody attacks Biden on his senility, I feel like that is a stronger indictment of Trump's own failure as a president. I do agree that Biden definitely seems to have slowed down in his older age, but I mean, he passed so much more legislation than Trump. I think our foreign policy aims are better than they were under Trump. And I think the way that he manages the rhetoric and the overall attitude of the country is way more responsible than Trump as well. And he's not facing 90+ criminal indictments. So.
Okay. So before we get to Pierce's response again in this 2v1 and then Lauren's response, I thought, what do you think of Destiny's answer?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty accurate. I mean, I usually have my own go-to arguments against people when they talk about, Biden's senility. I don't know how to pronounce it. Being senile.
No, senility is correct.
Senility. Yeah. I mean, what's your go-to answer when people, because this is a pretty common talking point. Like, what do you usually respond with when people ask about how senile Biden is? Because I have my thing that I usually say, which is, look, if he's like if he's some sort of puppet and there's some puppet master behind him, and that's who I'm really voting for, sounds like the puppet master's doing a great job. Why would I not want him in power again? Like, I don't know if I really care whoever is, like, let's live in your hypothetical, which I don't think is the case, that he is some senile old man and everyone just puts a bunch of papers in front of him and he just signs it. I'm grateful for the policies that he's passing. So it sounds like I'm happy for this current setup that's existing. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Like, if I buy your hypothetical, which I don't, I'm still okay with it. So,
what I would say, for me, just a couple of things. And I think that I think we need to hit this harder. Okay. So number one, yes, there's a perception issue that President Biden is mentally unfit for office. But if you look at consistent polling, poll after poll after poll, the same goddamn polls say that Donald Trump is not mentally fit for office. Mental fitness, 48% say yes, he's mentally fit. 51% say no. Now you can say, well, that's not 64%, and that Biden is worse. Okay, fine. But the fact of the matter is consistent polling show that neither of these men are exactly beacons of mental fitness in terms of perception.
I must be confused because I seem to recall that Trump did take a mental acuity test and he answered person, woman, man, camera, TV,
elephant, it's all good, accordion.
I don't know if you guys remember this, but this was one of the craziest things that happened during Trump's presidency, where he took like a mental acuity test and people looked into it, and it was like to check to see if your 12-year-old had like mental, like was.
Yeah, it was basically,
I don't know.
Do you need like constant wellness checks?
Yes.
Basically is what it is.
And he did land it. One of the questions on the test was, what date was it? And he did get it right. So, you know what?
Right.
We can have faith in our president once again.
Also, it's important to point, again, I just want to emphasize this because it's poll after poll after poll.
Yeah.
You have an Ipsos Reuters poll, which came out recently. And again, it's worse for Biden, to be sure, but it's still pretty bad for Trump. If you look at it, only Trump versus both Trump and Biden not fit for office, you're looking at 62% for Trump. So it ranges from like the low 50s into the 60s. There's a Langer research poll as well that has it at like 57% say that Trump is unfit for office. So to me, I think we have to reframe the issue. Like, okay, listen, if you want to talk about mental fitness, we can get into that. We should get into that because whether or not the nation's chief executive is mentally fit, that's a perfectly fair question to ask.
Sure.
But we need to be fair about it. And when you have both candidates making gaffes, when you have Trump talking about how you run a magnet underwater and the magnet fries and confusing Nancy Pelosi with Nikki Haley, and he says he's running against Obama. He ran against Obama. He beat Obama. He won every state, on and on and on. Then you need to ask those questions too. The problem is the media, the centrist, despicable media, and just really centrists everywhere who are, as you know, are scum of the earth. They like to create this false equivalence. Well, not me, for sure. Sure. They like to create this false equivalence where it's like, okay, well, we know Trump is stupid and corrupt. So in order to make this fair, we gotta really hang something around Biden's ankles. Oh, he's super old, even though Trump is like 3.5 years younger.
Yeah.
And also has, by the same standard, mental acuity issues. So I think we need to aggressively reframe the issue. Actually, the other thing I want to point out, this is important. Let me find it here. Okay. Hang on 1 second. Share the screen. Okay, right here. This was a poll from Langer Research in January. So I don't know if you all know this. Those of you who watch my channel do, because I keep hammering this home. President Biden's campaign has been hammering Donald Trump for months now over mental fitness. They started to swing back. I don't know if you've noticed that, Stacks, if you look at the Biden-Harris HQ Twitter page. You've seen it?
No, so I follow them on TikTok. They're great.
They are great. Their rapid response is impeccable. So check this out. According to Langer Research, Trump's ratings for mental sharpness and physical health both are down 7 points from May 2023. Why is that? I would argue it's because we're finally starting to hit Trump on this. Yeah. And it's starting to get at least some traction, usually in left or liberal-leaning media, obviously not on Fox, but like Axios will occasionally talk about it. CNN will occasionally talk about it, and see how it's manifested in a 7-point reduction. So maybe we should just never stop talking about how Trump is mentally unfit. He's ethically inferior. He's cognitively inferior. He's worse all the way around. Maybe we should not cede the ground. For sure. Or if Trump is going to win on the perception of mental fitness, we need to make him pay for every inch of ground he gains.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I do think that that's the thing that we should focus on right now as liberals who want Joe Biden to win, is constantly talking about how insane Donald Trump is and the circus show that has been the American experiment for the last 9 years now. We haven't been able to stop talking about Donald Trump for 9 straight years. And I feel everyone getting exhausted. It's like, okay, what is he really that bad? And the answer is yes. He's really that bad. I just made a video like an hour ago, put it on TikTok about Trump's recent interview with Sean Hannity, where Sean Hannity's like, hey, he's like, did you commit this crime? And he's like, look, if I committed that crime, that's fine. Like, I'll commit whatever crime that I want. He's like, we should move on, actually. And he's like, no, I can do whatever I want. That's what the president says.
Right. So anyway, they want to like yank him aside with a freaking, vaudeville hook. But so that's what I mean. So for me, you know me, like, obviously I do think you need to address the substance, but I also think you need to bring your enemy low. And with Donald Trump, there's plenty to go on. Do not cede the ground, folks. This is my recommendation to you all in your personal conversations, your interactions. If you're content creators or if you're not, when they're like, okay, it must be a choice between Trump corrupt, Biden senile. No, reject the premise. Yeah. If you want to generously grant their premise that Biden is senile, then say it's a choice between senile, Biden, and corrupt and senile, Trump. No matter how you slice it, Trump is just objectively worse. And that's if you generously grant the premise. I actually don't think you should. And here in this debate or in this conversation, here in probably about 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to play another clip, which I think addresses this point as well. Yeah. But go ahead.
I do. Well, so I don't know. I can't remember if I sent you the video or if I just called you so angry about a video that I watched. I never ended up sending it to you. But there's this one clip that I saw going like really big on TikTok of Biden responding to something that Donald Trump said about like NATO and Putin, basically saying, hey, Trump essentially said, look, we'll let Putin do whatever he wants. And Biden was like, I don't even know how to put words in it. Like, I don't even know how to say words to describe how insane that is. That's essentially what he does. And he kind of stutters over himself. And all of the comments on TikTok were like, look at this stuttering old man who can't even put words together. And he's like, and I'm like, no, he is obviously frustrated and overwhelmed by this crazy response to Putin's invasion of Ukraine. It's this weird perspective that everyone has committed this idea that Biden is senile. So when they watch a video that presupposes their expectations, they go, "Oh, perfect, my biases are confirmed," and it's deeply frustrating.
I do recall that phone call, but I still didn't watch that clip because I just can't handle that sort of thing right now. Like some of these things just infuriate me. So we'll continue. That was Destiny making the case. Listen, Biden senile, that's a hell of an indictment of Trump, given that Biden's gotten more accomplished. This is how Piers and Tommy Lauren respond.
That may well be true, but the reality is perception is often half the battle with an election campaign. The perception is that Donald Trump is a little bit younger, but has twice the energy, twice the dynamism, and all the stuff that's being thrown at him, far from defeating him, as is usually the case with politicians, has empowered him and made him stronger. What are the Democrats going to do about that come November?
I think all Democrats can kind of hope for is that the perception of the economy continues to increase. Consumer sentiment is starting to climb again. I think that Trump is also stumbling into a few misspeaks on his own. I think there was that clip of him mixing up Nikki Haley and Pelosi. There was him talking about, I think it was the deserts of Vietnam. Both of these guys are definitely, I'd say, hitting their older age, their golden years. So I don't know if Trump is going to be free of any of the misspeaks that Biden has found himself stumbling into recently as well.
Well, Tommy, let's just play a clip. This is of Trump doing his Biden impression the other day.
If it's cool, I'm going to skip this part because
no, that's fine. I do think that Piers is largely correct. That there is the perception of president matters to a lot of people, but there is.
I stopped listening after you said that Piers was largely correct. I love how you left that hang. By the way, you're like, guys, I actually think that Piers won this debate, and then you let it hang.
True. Yeah. No, I think that there's some built-in perception when it comes to Trump that's very strange to me. Like I remember this was probably, I don't remember the time. It's been such an exhausting cycle of Trump sometimes. I think this was like 3 years ago when he went on that weird rant about how toilets can't flush. Do you remember that? That was I think it was like 3 years ago.
Go this way, but now they go the other way. What's going on? And by the way, I used to be able to take care of business with one flush. Now it's 3 flushes.
Do you remember this?
That? Thanks, Obama.
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
so
that was so
dumb.
and I was like trying to like, what the hell is he talking about? And everyone was just like, no, he's dialed into the median voter more than anyone could ever understand. I'm like, how is this your perception of someone clearly just like couldn't flush and then blamed it on the entire American like state? And then he's somehow more in lock with how the median voter feels because of this perception. It's such this weird, maybe it's just populism in general where like you can essentially say anything as long as you're rallying to people and they'll come to you. But if you don't want to engage with politics in that way, then it's an uphill battle. That's probably what's going on. But it's so frustrating and weird that Trump will have these weird fucking rants that make no sense at all. And everyone's like, yep, that's how the average American feels. He really gets it. He really has his pulse on the rest of American society. I don't get it.
Or he has his thumb on the pulse. So I think listen, and I actually said this in a video that I did shortly before we went live, which is I also agree that it's fair to say, listen, those are the facts, but perception arguably matters more in electoralism because people very often make irrational voting decisions, right?
Yeah.
So this is, again, something that I've talked about in previous videos and conversations. Facts do not speak for themselves. And I feel like, unfortunately, Democrats, liberals, progressives, leftists in general, those of us who are not conservatives, just make the default assumption, well, we have the facts on our side, ergo, things will follow through. That's insane. That's never how politics work. That's never how persuasion or rhetorics work. You actually have to tell an interesting story with the facts at your disposal. And Republicans are really good at making persuasive rhetoric and propaganda without the advantage of facts. So we really need to step up our game. But my beef with Morgan here is that he should have said, you know what, Destiny, that's fair. Those are fair. Those are facts. But there is a perception issue with which Biden must contend, and then push back on him, and then Destiny can answer. Then he should turn to Tommy Lauren and say, Tommy, you know, you have the perception on your side, but Destiny is right about the comparative record between Trump and Biden. So if you're appealing to perception, we should also care about facts here. And what does it say that when you look at the facts, Trump really wasn't that accomplished of a deal maker, of a negotiator, of an executor, of a legislator. So what about that? What happens if Democrats are able to successfully make this about record? But the MFer never says anything.
I agree with this. And I'll add on to this that what he also doesn't do is he could argue from the battle of perception and say, okay, we should contend with Biden's perception, like the Americans' perception of Biden, but let's look at the Americans' perception of Donald Trump, which is a serial rapist, a criminal, a laughingstock who constantly, he is considered widely to the American people as a bully. And that is something that you should also contend with, Tommy Lahren. And Piers obviously doesn't ask those questions because, you know, Piers won Celebrity Apprentice, or he was on it, or something like that.
I don't know if he won it, but he was
on it. I remember watching that when I was like 15, 12 or something like that. I don't know. And Piers was on it. So of course he's not going to talk shit about his buddy, his golfing buddy. Like it's so ridiculous. Like it's so obviously biased.
Hang on 1 second.
But continue. Yeah.
Hang on. Nope. Okay. Aaron made a good point that maybe I should change the title of the stream. God, I'm dying.
Which
I need this cough to go away. It's just Pondering Politics Live.
You want to add?
But like I do this all with Restream. So anyway, I digress. Sure. Let's see here real quick. So many comments. I struggle with Morgan perpetuating lies. He's no better than anyone from Fox. He's actually a Fox correspondent, right? He used to work for CNN, but now he's a Fox News contributor. He has substituted, as a matter of fact, for the true hero of the Fox propaganda network, which is Jessica Tarlov on the 5. So instead of 4 people beating up on Biden and praising Trump, it's just 5 people at that point. So yeah. Good eye. Social Society with Brandon Clark, whom you all should follow if you have not yet. This guy is grinding, putting out video after video after video. He's a political commentator. He's progressive, up and coming. He says the cult can't be moved. Independents can, but yeah, I think the MAGA base is pretty locked in at this point. So the goal should just be to politically, neutralize them by appealing to moderates and then passing popular progressive legislation over their objections and using the brute force of democracy.
Yeah, the cult is very clearly not even close to 50% of the country. It's probably, I would guess, 15%. I don't know if I've seen polls. That's a total guess. I would probably have to look to double check those numbers, but
yeah, they're definitely not the majority, even though they seem to think they do. And honestly, actually, what's funny is Morgan kind of makes that mistake here too, where he keeps talking. We'll get into it. He talks about well, we'll get into it.
Me about Trump. I've known him a long time. I look at him, warts and all, good, bad, ugly. There's plenty of all of that with Trump. But his supporters love him. And one of the reasons I think that he's so popular with so many Americans is because he makes them laugh. And I watched that speech the other day. He was very funny. Not always, and some of it, as always with Trump, some of the hyperbolic rhetoric was a bit alarming. But actually, he was an entertainer, entertaining the crowd. That's why they like him. That's why they vote for him.
They like him because he has charisma. I like him because he has charisma. I also like him because when Donald Trump was my president, the economy was doing well. We ended endless wars. We started no new wars. There was relatively peace around the world with Donald Trump at the helm of the United States of America. People did.
So I just like this nonsense where we keep citing the economy and then forgetting to cite what the economy is actually doing under Trump and Biden. Like, we can say, hey, look, there are some problems with just citing the 2020 statistics, like the unemployment rate was so high because of COVID, not necessarily Trump, but the economy was doing awfully in 2020. 2021, it's doing incredibly. We had the fastest recovery rate than any other country on the planet, and we are doing better than any other country on the planet currently. And that sort of like economic sentiment is so fractured from how the economy is actually doing because of people like Tommy Lahren, who just keep saying the economy isn't doing that well, and then refusing to show any graphs or cite their sources about any of that. If you look up right now our GDP, or if you look up like our unemployment rate or inflation, like any of these things that are commonly cited, we are doing remarkably well, essentially compared to other countries post-COVID. And it's so nonsensical. Like I genuinely don't know what she's talking about, but she also refuses to pull up a figure. So I know what she's talking about. She's making a narrative so that she could sell her base on being anti-Biden. And it's so I don't know,
So
repulsive.
the problem is the economy for the first 3 years under Trump did do relatively well.
Yeah.
The problem is that the vast majority of these situations, with the exception of an uptick for the stock market, which as far as I'm concerned is not the most important macroeconomic metric, and I imagine most macroeconomists would agree,
100%.
more GDP growth, more unemployment rate, stock market tends to be middle or lower of the pack. But the rest of these things were essentially continuations of Obama era trends. And as a matter of fact, if you take the last 3 years of Biden's presidency, the last 3 years of Obama's presidency, right? And the first 3 years of Trump's presidency.
Oh, and charted on a graph. It's just like
charted on the graph. Well, actually, when it comes to things like average job growth, and this is prior to COVID, the average number of jobs decreased under Trump than they were under Obama. But for the most part, they were mere continuations of Obama-era trends. The problem is, and a lot of conservatives do this, they appeal to American short-term memory. And also Trump, unlike Biden and unlike Obama, will brag the shit out of things, including or perhaps especially for things that he had no control over, right? Just to attribute him to him.
The strange thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No.
Yeah. They look at metrics instead of policies. And it's very, very strange because there's a lot of things that can influence an economy outside of the president, obviously.
I would actually I would give them credit if they looked at metrics. I would still give them partial credit.
Looked at metrics. Sure.
But the problem is they don't do it. They look at metrics selectively. They forget about the metrics from January 2009 to January 2017, right? They forget about all that. They forget that the fact that President Obama was inherited a recession from President Bush, had to spend most of his presidency digging us out of that hole, hands a pretty good economy off to Donald Trump. Donald Trump keeps it running for the most part, again, keeping those trends stable, then tanks it. But the way they have it carved off, they're like, listen, time began anew, January 2017. It all was good under Trump, and nothing was good before him. It was all good because of him and only because of him. But also, we want you to forget about that last year of Trump's presidency. That doesn't count. That's different.
100%. And like, it is also frustrating that they don't really talk about policies, because I can't, anytime I try to get a Trump supporter to say, hey, what did he do? Don't look at his outcome. What policies did he try to pass? They aren't able to say anything. And for good reason, by the way. He didn't really pass all that much. But then you ask what Biden did, and I go, oh, Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act. Like, I could go down the line of so many policies that I feel like genuinely stirred up the economy in a positive way. And they don't have anything for Trump. And apparently that doesn't bother a lot of people. And it certainly doesn't bother his base.
Yeah.
Didn't like what he tweeted. People didn't like the way that he spoke. Maybe they didn't like the way that he dressed or the way that his hairstyle was or his fake tan. But none of that mattered because the United States was doing well. Our border was secure. The world was a better place with Donald Trump at the helm. And when Democrats talk about Joe Biden and they say, oh, he's slipping a little bit, my goodness, we know that they are obviously gaslighting us, because we can clearly see that Joe Biden is not just slipping. He was slipping in 2020. 2020. He has slipped all the way now that we're in 2024. And it's not just little misspeaks here and there. Everybody has misspeaks. They mix people up. For Joe Biden, you have a special counsel report that quite plainly says we can't go after this man for his classified documents because he's a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. That says it all right there. Maybe we can indict him 96 times. We can't charge him with 96 things because he simply is not cognitively there enough to be able to withstand it. That's the leader of the United States. That's the best the Democrats can do for their party. I'm sorry. You guys better be shaking in your boots if that's what you're going to go with in November.
Now, so again, before we play it back, just a couple of things. She was also saying the same thing in 2020. She lost. So again, it's one of those things where I take Trump seriously enough so that when Republicans who are right now very confident in the polls start like flexing and whatever, I don't match that energy because it's entirely possible that Biden can beat Trump in 2020 and then lose to him in 2024, right? That just because you won in 2020 doesn't mean you're guaranteed to win the next election cycle. But part of me is like, who are you and why are you so goddamn comfortable talking this kind of shit when your guy, he won in 2016, barely. Right. By the way, lost the popular vote.
Vote.
He really only won. I think we could easily make the case because of James Comey's last minute press conference.
100%.
Sandbags Hillary Clinton. You know, he loses in 2018. His party loses the House. They lose the House, or excuse me, they lose the Senate. Or excuse me, they lose the presidency in 2020, the Senate in 2021. They lose in 2022, the midterms. Then they lose in the 2023 off-year elections. And it's like, so you're hanging all your hopes for 2024 such that you're content to talk this mad shit because of polling ahead of the election. Like, so I just she's like, you better be shaking in your boots. And I'm like, lady, you better be looking at the past electoral cycles
for sure.
Where MAGA has lost.
And I
do think,
and
again and again.
I do think the Republican Party has largely, I empathize for the tiny, I have like a sliver of empathy because I don't think that essentially a lot of the higher ups in the Republicans, especially Fox News, especially like Daily Wire-esque like pundits on the conservative side, they don't really want Trump legitimately. They kind of want to pivot to someone like DeSantis or Ramaswamy. But the thing is that Trump has essentially inspired a death cult who will run with him until he dies. And, you know, your hands are tied when you create this monstrosity that suddenly gets away. I mean, it's Frankenstein's monster all over again.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because the leader of the RNC, Ronna Romney McDaniel, Mitt Romney's niece, who, by the way, ditched her last name because Trump hates Mitt Romney, so she dropped her last name. She's resigned in disgrace because Trump pressured her to quit. It's one of those things where, like, I can't even remember the meme, but woman in tiger eating face party is shocked that tiger eats face. I have nothing but contempt for these people. Nothing but contempt for these people.
Yeah, there's some strange thing in their brain that they're going to be immune somehow. You know, like when you step up to be a part of Trump's side, if you take his side, if you stand by him, if you're a loyalist to Trump, he somehow won't throw you under the bus. And if history shows us anything about authoritarian populist leaders, they do this to their inner circle. It's an inherently self-destructive cycle, and Trump is no different. We watch that revolving door of every single person that entered the White House immediately get dismissed. Everyone is suddenly a traitor. Every single person that he brings in is also somehow part of the swamp. And it doesn't seem to make any sense, but their base doesn't seem to really care about that.
Yeah. I didn't think they'd eat my face, person who voted for the leopards eating face party. Well done, Asmodeus. Thomas says the first line in her report, we conclude that no criminal charges are warranted in this matter. Yes, so that's the other thing. Tommy Lauren wildly misrepresented the widely over-sensationalized, and by the way, wildly inappropriate editorializing of the Robert Hur special counsel report, in which Hur waxes poetic at length about President Biden's mental acuity, which, by the way, I just really want to emphasize this. It's not just liberal people complaining about that. You have Alan Dershowitz, who defended Trump during his impeachment. He's a relatively conservative attorney now, even though he says he's one of those liberals. He's one of those liberals who always complains about the left and liberals and progressives. You know what you call that type of liberal, by the way? Conservative. So anyway, he's one of those conservatives, and he says that was wildly off base, wildly outside his remit for going on at length about the president's mental state. DOJ prosecutors, former U.S. attorneys, Trey freaking Gowdy. Now, Stacks won't know this because all he cares is about culture war nonsense. But Trey Gowdy was a former Republican congressman who led some of the Benghazi situation against Hillary Clinton. He's a Fox News commentator, and even he said, he's like, that was wildly inappropriate. That's not Robert Hur's. That's not his area of expertise. It's inappropriate. All it should have been was a very short, we're charging or we're not. Here's why. Not going on at length about how much you think President Biden speaks gibberish or whatever. And again, if you did dig deeper into the report, he says in these various claims, there was insufficient evidence here. We couldn't prove this case here. It wasn't, as Tommy Lawrence suggests, they had a rock solid case, except they were worried that there would be jury nullification because people would think Biden is a well-intentioned old man. So she's lying through her teeth.
I do want to say one more thing real quick.
Sure.
And I probably just want to pull up an image for this. But this anti-war rhetoric, have you seen any graphs on drone strikes by presidencies?
Biden's dropped. Biden has effectively
extremely
killed
so. Yeah.
the drone war.
So if I've got the numbers right here. So let's do some quick guessing, okay? Don't pull up the numbers yourself, Josiah. How many drone strikes do you think Trump committed in the year 2017?
How many drone strikes did he
Yeah,
commit
just
in
throw out a
2017?
number, whatever you think.
3,000.
11,440. Okay. How many did Biden do in the year of our Lord 2022?
100.
36. And yes, Obama does have some insane numbers. He is the most. 2016 was the most we've ever done drone strikes.
Well,
Trump
we're gonna put it.
Hang
on. We got to put a caveat here.
Mm-hmm.
Obama has the highest number of drone strikes recorded, but here's the caveat: under Trump revoked DoD policy, which had them record drone strikes. So there's a lot of guesswork. The reports for Trump, based on all available information, are actually underreported because he wanted to drone strike the shit out of everybody, and he didn't want the DoD to have to publicize the numbers. So he rescinded Obama-era executive orders, which mandated such things. So we don't know. It's entirely possible that Trump dwarfed Obama, not just in terms of rate, but also in terms of raw numbers as well.
Sure. But I think that it is largely true to say that at the very least, Obama and Trump were much more engaged with the drone strike, and Biden has dropped those numbers to almost zero.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
I mean, Destiny, I know your view of Trump, but it's hard to argue with a lot of what Tommy just said, isn't it? I mean, the Democrats seem to me to be sleepwalking in to a complete disaster if they're not careful. Biden does look, from here across the pond anyway, like someone who can barely string a sentence together or stay on his own 2 feet. How would anyone vote for someone, given they have to do 4 years more from November as President of the United States, the toughest job in the world?
I mean, it depends on what you're pushing for. I mean, if you want to elect a comedian because he's got good charisma, then I agree that Trump definitely has better stage presence than Biden does. I think if you're a Democrat, you want to support Biden, you just have to try to stick in the realm of fact. Republicans inhabit a totally separate world right now. I just heard Tommy Lawrence say that we're doing better on the foreign policy front because Trump was better for being in endless wars. I mean, he bombed Syria. He abandoned Kurdish allies. He kicked the can down the road in Afghanistan. He hid Yemen drone strikes from us. He was still part of the Saudi-led coalition to bomb Yemen. He didn't do anything about Russia's takeover of Crimea. I mean, like, the idea that Trump was better on any of these areas of foreign policy is ridiculous. The idea that he was better domestically when he completely mishandled
Obama,
that's not what he said.
Obama's not my anointed
my friend.
one. That's
Yeah, that's not what he said.
That's not what he said. Yeah, Crimea did. So yes, Russia annexed Crimea in 2014. But what he said was that Trump didn't do anything about that. He looked at that situation where Russia was occupying Crimea and said, I don't see anything there. Yeah. Why would I do something about that?
Right.
What am I, the president of the United States of America, who has the greatest soft power in the history of the entire world? Why would I do something about that?
Yeah. So, and the other thing too, and some handsome stud made this point in a video probably about like an hour and a half ago. When it comes to foreign policy and like, this idea that This idea that there were no wars under Trump, ergo Trump gets the credit for it. That is just like classic post hoc, ergo propter hoc logic. This idea that a thing follows a thing, therefore the first thing, the second thing happens because, yeah, exactly. It's like you have not established a causal relationship.
I'm so impressed by your Latin, by the way. That was
thank
really
you.
good.
I want to know what Latin is. Go F yourself. So if you can come up with that and send it to me, I'll send it back to you. But like this idea. And Republicans do this all the time. This thing happened. This good thing happened while Trump was in office. Ergo, Trump is directly responsible for it. Now those same people will tell you when something bad happens while Trump's in office. Well, that doesn't count. That's not
right.
him.
That's because of the swamp that he brought in. That he don't created. Ask me how that works.
Right. So, but you need to actually be able to point to things that he did, because here's my thing. Here's my refutation of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you accept that the evidence shows that in 2016 and 2020, Vladimir Putin wanted Trump in the White House?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course.
So Putin wanted Trump in the White House.
Is this a rhetorical, or are you asking me?
No, I'm asking you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Unquestionably, yes.
Did Putin want to invade Ukraine?
Unquestionably.
So how on earth would Trump have prevented Putin from ever invading Ukraine if he wanted both of these things? If he wanted both of these things, right? You would if Putin wanted to invade Ukraine and didn't
no, 100%. And I can also argue pretty easily as to why Putin invaded Ukraine when he did in 2022.
Yeah, February
2022.
February 2022. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we made huge steps to start. We started taking steps to induct Ukraine into NATO, and Russia knew that once Ukraine joins NATO, he cannot take Ukraine ever. So he goes, now is my chance. I have no other opportunity, because America is starting to take steps to ensure that I can never do this. So I have to do this right now, because I'm scared if I wait any longer, Biden's going to solidify all of the protection that we have for Ukraine. That doesn't sound like that doesn't sound like pro-war to me. That doesn't sound like Biden caused Trump. Like, what is the solution, that we just constantly leave Ukraine out into the blue?
So that's a great point. So we can say, and again, some stud made this made this point in a video recently.
Yeah,
which is, it may very well have been that the reason Putin didn't invade Ukraine when Trump was in office is because he didn't feel he would need to, not because he was afraid to, but because there was no need to, because he thought maybe
I'll build
Trump
up my
will just
army.
Trump will just kill NATO or help disintegrate NATO while I build up for an invasion that may come later or may not have to happen at all if Trump is a wrecking ball to NATO.
Which is not a crazy hypothetical at all, because he has made explicit claims that he wants to disband NATO once he becomes president again. It's completely like, I don't understand how people can't follow this logic. It's sometimes infuriating.
It is. So Brandon Clark also points out another aspect of foreign policy.
Yeah, the Abraham Accords. Yeah.
Abraham Accords moved an embassy to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv, which weakened relations and heightened tensions because Jerusalem is also a holy land in Islam. Yes, touche.
100%.
But I've been told.
Wait, who did that?
That was Trump.
It couldn't have been Trump.
Trump
was anti-war.
No, I hear you. Trump did it in a way where like the good stuff is because of him, and like the bad stuff is Hillary Clinton. I digress.
Or Barack Obama.
That's great. Trump still didn't do anything about it. Even if you think that Trump does have good ideas for the country, he has just failed as a leader. He's a failure of a businessman. He's a failure of a leader. He can't get people together to write legislation. Joe Biden, in all his senility, was somehow able to pass the same infrastructure bill that Donald Trump said for 4 years he was going to get done. He didn't. Donald Trump couldn't even repeal or replace Obamacare, which is what a lot of Republicans literally voted him to do. Like, the idea that Trump is a competent leader is anything more than just a comedian or a guy that does funny one-liners on Twitter is delusional.
I mean, you can blame him for many things, but as Tommy said, you can't blame him for the takeover of Crimea, because that was years before Trump came into power.
No, I'm not blaming him for the takeover of Crimea. I'm saying that Trump has never made a good but difficult foreign policy decision. If you look at the Doha agreement that he made with the Taliban, he kicked the can down the road. He says that he would be strong on Ukraine. The only thing he cared about for Ukraine was trying to get information about Hunter Biden.
What about what Joe Biden did in Afghanistan?
All right, before we jump in on that, because I've got a lot to say on that, I do want to say, I think that this was one of Destiny's strongest points, this last part. Like, okay, listen to yourselves. you all right now are saying, oh, Trump is so charismatic, he's so funny. Is that really the metric is that the skill set and the characteristics that we are most looking for in a chief executive?
Mhm.
Really?
No,
Here,
listen to this. I think that Hitler was probably a pretty good speaker. You know, I think that he actually did a really good job mobilizing his base and engaging with people. I don't think that makes Hitler the good leader.
right. So the point is that they are so desperate, they're scrambling from something. Okay, sure, Biden's record and Trump's record completely asymmetrical, but again, Donald Trump can make people laugh. Ergo, doesn't that make him an ideal chief executive? No, it's so weird. It just, I don't understand. Like, Donald Trump, he might be able to juggle well too.
It does kind of make sense that
he's great
it's either
at
Donald
karaoke. Trump is so good at karaoke. Why on
it's
earth
either
wouldn't
Donald
we
Trump
want-
or Bill Burr, honestly. If we're going with this metric,
I'll definitely Bill Burr 100%. And I'm not saying that'd be a great decision either. I'm just saying, it's so stupid. These people are idiots.
Yeah.
It was the most shameful and disgraceful overnight fleeing of a country and throwing millions of Afghan women back to the Taliban walls. Now, you can blame Trump all you like for that, but the bottom line is it happened under Joe Biden on his watch. He was president. It was a catastrophic failure, that evacuation. So many allies and friends of the Americans were left in its wake. Many people died that day. And women in Afghanistan have gone back to the medieval dark ages. That's on Joe Biden, isn't it?
No. If you read the special inspector general report for Afghanistan, the whole reason why that pullout happened on that timetable was because of the Doha agreements that Donald Trump signed. He drew our troop levels down to historic lows in Afghanistan for when Biden came into office because Donald Trump put America on a timetable to leave that country. If Biden wanted to, he could have come in and undone that.
So just to be clear, though, Destiny, you're blaming Donald Trump for a decision that was taken 8 months after he left office.
That decision was taken under Donald Trump. The timetable was established under Donald Trump.
He didn't have to stick to it. Joe Biden's a big boy. He's the president of the United States. I mean, Tommy, it seems to me that the desperate...
Okay, so this is my beef. Okay.
Yeah, I was... Oh, go ahead.
Actually, no, go ahead. You go ahead.
I don't know how well Destiny did here. I'll be honest. I do think that there are a lot better arguments to use here, which is... Oh, go ahead.
No. I want to hear it. We're gonna.
Okay,
fight.
well, here's what I would say about Afghanistan from what I remember about this. And again, this was like the first thing that Joe Biden did. So this was, I think, 2021, like early 2021. So it's been a little while. But from what I remember, I was looking at the situation, and a lot of people were criticizing it without providing answers, good alternative answers. And I do think that that's one of my biggest frustrations sometimes when I argue with people is that they will just criticize without providing substantive alternatives. And generally, when you have a situation where you're occupying an area for 20 years and essentially being their sole guardians, and the entire American population is against occupying this area consistently, and all of the Afghans, essentially, we're trying to arm them to make sure that they can fight Al Qaeda or the Taliban well. What do we do in that circumstances? Do we just stay indefinitely, even though it's been 20 years? Do we just keep trying that out? How is there a way to leave where we don't leave them with equipment for them to fight against the Taliban? Do we what specifically should we do? Should it just be like part of America now? Is Afghanistan? Should we just annex the whole country? Like, what is your solution? I genuinely don't know. And I don't think that a lot of people have a lot of answers for how we should solve Afghanistan.
Listen, I think that's a perfectly fair line of it. That would be the follow-up to say, but I disagree. I think Destiny made a very compelling case here, in large part because I have pushed him in this direction. I'm going to take the credit. No, I'm just kidding. But he made a very good case here, which is, again, it goes back to the timeline thing. Okay, this idea, I want to establish something here. Did Joe Biden have the legal authority to effectively break the Doha agreement when Joe Biden was inaugurated as president? Yes. Nobody has ever disputed that.
He's
that
the commander-in-chief, of course.
Right, and Trump is no longer. He had the authority to effectively shred the thing. The problem is this, that in the deal that Trump made, the reason that there was effectively a ceasefire between the Taliban and U.S. forces was because the Taliban said, listen, if you get the F out, basically on this timeline, we won't shoot your people. So if Biden had ignored the timeline effectively or surged troops or whatever, then we would have been in a shooting war with the Taliban. Then what would have happened? Then here's my question.
Yeah.
Let's imagine that counterfactual. Biden says, screw the timeline. I'll do whatever I want. I'm Joe Biden. We're going to renegotiate. And then the Taliban starts shooting U.S. troops.
Yeah.
Would Tommy Lauren and Piers Morgan go, you know what? That's great, Biden. That's great. You stood your ground. You said that this was a bad deal. You made an executive decision. Or would they have been like, wow, Joe Biden, I can't believe that you're allowing the Taliban to shoot U.S. personnel.
Right.
It's a catch-22 because these people are hypocrites and they're liars and they're bad faith actors. It's all about screwing Biden. There was no winning of that scenario, especially when you also consider the fact that when Trump made the deal with the Taliban, by the way, negotiating with a terrorist organization, I thought that was a big no-no, right? As a matter of fact, Republicans were pissed at Biden. Republicans were pissed at Biden
No, for sure.
when he negotiated with the Taliban at the end of the Afghanistan occupation to provide security in Kabul against ISIS-K, which was the group responsible for killing those 13 U.S. service people. Republicans were like, how dare you negotiate with the Taliban? It's like, bro, Trump did that. That's how we got here. It's different when Trump does it.
No, 100%. Sorry, I 100% agree with you. And I think that this whole, like, we never negotiate with terrorists is such a silly way to look at international.
Yeah, we always do that.
We do this all the time.
No, 100%.
No, but from Republicans' standpoint, they always say this, but it's okay when Trump does it. So
it is okay when Trump does.
Yeah.
And so again, that's why I will give not an inch on Afghanistan. You could easily make the case that it was all 100% Trump's fault. And I will never give an inch on that because, again, we're not going to play by different sets of standards. If it's bad to negotiate with terrorists, then I'm going to proverbially club Trump over the head in perpetuity for doing the damn thing in the first place. But setting all that aside, it was 13,500 troops that we had in Afghanistan when Trump made the deal. Trump makes the deal, and then over the course of the next year, reduces U.S. personnel to 2,500. So then imagine. Actually, no, it's not even, we can't even just say that because then he also arranged for the release of 5,000 Taliban prisoners that were Taliban imprisoned by the Afghan government.
Prisoners of war, yeah.
He bullies the Afghan government to release 5,000 Taliban fighters. So think about that. Put it just in the simplest terms.
By the way,
Trump gave the Taliban twice as many soldiers as he left Biden in Afghanistan.
Which is pretty inconsistent of him because does he support or does he disagree with prisoners of war? Because it sounds like when they're American, he hates them and he'll shit on John McCain. But if they're Taliban, it's like, you can join the army.
So it's so freaking maddening. So the bottom line is Trump factually dealt Biden a bad hand. And people, to your point, that's when you follow up and say, so now that we've established the fact
what would you suggest
Donald Trump set this whole thing up for failure, that is a fact. And then he should challenge Piers and Tommy to refute it. And they would just Biden senile. That's what they'd go back to because they're woefully outclassed on the facts. Then the follow-up question is, now that we've established that the morally, intellectually, and sexually inferior Trump is responsible for all of this, then my question is, what should Biden have done differently?
Right.
He shouldn't have given up Bagram Air Base. Okay, but we had a good faith basis to give up that air base. It was like an hour away from the major population center, which means you would have had to take 100,000 people an hour away as the country was being swept by an 80,000 person strong insurgency, number one. And even though it had 2 airfields, right, because that's the other thing people say, well, Bagram had 2 airfields. We could have loaded twice as many, or we could have had twice as many planes taking off at one time. CENTCOM and the military command there said they had 2 airfields, but half the loading capacity of the Kabul airport. So my point is, even if you're hanging your hopes that they should have kept the 1 air base, which by the way, again, was reduced under Trump, I'll just point that out. There was a good reason at the time to make a different decision. So that's the other thing. Stupid people, bad faith people don't understand. Sometimes I imagine in the military, you can make a reasonable decision that turns out to be wrong, but it was still a reasonable decision. Since you're not psychic, I don't know. It's just
no 100%. I don't know what I like. Sometimes you talk to conservatives and they're like, yeah, we just should have always stayed in Afghanistan, or like, I don't know what their answer is. Like, it's just, It's just
Silly.
ridiculous. Yep.
Silly. All right, let's continue.
Attempts.
Is he a big boy, Piers? Is he a big boy? I'm not so sure. He has to use like
Can we
big
pause
kitty
real quick?
stairs,
Just
but I
real
just have
quick?
to jump in here.
We're not even 10
just-
minutes in.
I know. I want to just point out the juxtaposition of like the conversations that you were having about the Taliban, and
Yeah.
then we go to the professional pundits and they just go, "Is he a big boy? Is he a
Right.
big boy?" Like that is what the conservatives are bringing. They're bringing their
No,
best.
100%.
They are
it's
bringing their
weird.
best.
By the way, have you noticed the questions? That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. This was a 2v freaking 1.
Yeah.
Destiny. President Biden, whom you voted for, is a senile, worthless POS. Tommy
Yeah.
Lauren, why is Donald Trump so funny? What is the key to how is he just so good
Is
at
Biden a big boy?
Yes.
Is Biden a big boy?
I don't know, Piers.
I hate these people.
Because I don't think anybody wanted to stay in Afghanistan. That wasn't the point. The timetable that Donald Trump negotiated, there was nothing wrong with the timetable. Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan was catastrophic. He didn't have the support that he needed. He didn't have the strategy that he needed. It wasn't about staying in Afghanistan in perpetuity. Nobody wanted that. I'm sure Democrats didn't want to be in an endless war in Afghanistan either. It was the way that Biden handled it. And every time since then, he has failed when it comes to foreign policy. Now we've got Israel at war. We've got Ukraine still and heading into year, 2.5 of war that we are still funding. The world is a much more dangerous place. And that doesn't even bring me to my southern border where we have 10 million illegal immigrants who have invaded on Biden's watch. I'm sure my friend is going to tell me that that is Donald Trump's fault as well, even though he oversaw the most secure border that we believe in American history that we know of. So there is no disputing the record. You can say that Joe Biden was able to sit there as a shadow president while things got passed through Democrat chambers, but you can't sit here and tell me that the man is cognitively well or that he's done anything on his own accord to better the world of the United States.
Well, let me.
So, two things. Number one, 10 million, that figure. It's BS. She has no basis for it. That's just like, Biden's allowed like 50 trillion migrants into the country. Based on best estimates that we have, 2.4 million migrants have been allowed into the United States under President Biden over the span of 3 years. You could say that's still too high. Fine. But then in that case, perhaps you should encourage Congress and those pesky Republicans to increase resources, manpower, and funding at the border, or perhaps comprehensive legislation. But before we dive into the border, because that's going to come up, the other thing I want to say is note this funny thing that Tommy Lauren did, which I've never heard a Republican do before. Seriously, like I've never heard a Republican do this. So when Destiny keeps hitting her with the legislation, how Biden got infinitely more legislation, infinitely more bipartisan and comprehensive and meaningful legislation passed. See what she does? She goes, well, he's a shadow president. He just sat there and allowed Democratic chambers to do that stuff without him. Well, number one, where's your evidence for that? Number two, again, the double standard. Then I need you to point to me with receipts. I want the video footage that Trump did the stuff you're talking about instead of just taking credit for it with more competent Republicans in his administration. If that's your standard, that we can't give Biden credit because we have no video evidence where he's like with pen and paper writing the goddamn legislation in the first place, fine. I challenge you to do that with Trump, but you won't because you can't, because you'd fail.
It's my consistent frustration, right? Like
yes,
they
this
don't...
aggressive double standard we have to relentlessly push back on. Destiny doesn't have the time to do it. I wish he did. I've been like, okay, fine. If that's the standard, then right now, pull up the receipts, Tommy, because you talk about how great Trump is, then prove what he did, not what his advisors did, not what Jared Kushner did, not what Mike Pompeo did, not what Mattis did. What did Donald Trump do himself? And then then he should tell her to shut the fuck up. I hate
that'll go well.
Republican elected officials and Republican thought leaders, conservative commentators. Like I can't. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, for sure. I mean, it's a constant frustration that like Trump supporters never seem to be able to point to any policy at all that ever seems to highlight the things that they want it to highlight. Like it's just this never-ending battle. But I also feel really strange sometimes about the way that they cite specific things, like the fact that it's been 2.5 years and Ukraine is still fighting. Isn't that a huge W? Like they're the defending forces. You know what I'm saying? The longer that they're able to withstand those forces, the better it shows how well we've been able to defend against them. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know if that shows the thing that you're trying to show.
Yeah, I agree. I want to point out here that somebody, says, "Good to see Staxiums."
Uh-huh.
Hedonic treadmill, buddy. I don't know.
Are you gonna ban him from the server?
No, I should. No, I'm just kidding. Let's see here. Again, Brandon Clark says, "More judges, easier access to work visas and citizenship, so they can start fully aiding our economy. Even most illegal immigrants pay taxes through ITNS. They pay billions into Social Security."
Yes. I so appreciate you saying this, because this is such a common talking point that illegal immigrants are stealing our money or something like that. When the reality is the vast majority of undocumented immigrants, one, do not go through the border. They come here through work visas or student visas, and they overstay those visas. Two, they're essentially going off other American Social Security cards. So paying every time they have a job, they pay into a resource that they cannot pull out of. They are helping every single other American with our Social Security. I obviously don't want to live in a world where undocumented immigrants are coming to pay for my retirement and they don't have any benefit that they can get from it. But like, even if you're going through the America First timeline, obviously you would want undocumented immigrants. You're like, dude, they're paying our retirement. It's not even going to themselves. It's going just to us, baby. Like, they can't even go through that level of thinking. Like, it's so distorted that they can't even have what obviously benefits them, because they're so hooked on the idea that brown people bad.
I don't want you to go into any detail, but I do love this. First time Pondering Josiah had a frustrating moment I've seen. I like that. You should emote more, just your frustration with everything. All I want you to say, again, you cannot go into detail.
Okay.
I just want you to say, have you ever heard me have moments of frustration?
The amount of times he's called me and just like, just screams. That's all. Just like, I saw something and I will. Yeah, he gets frustrated a lot. He gets frustrated.
My blood pressure is constant. Like, it's stratospheric.
He's like, look what he just saw about Trump and Biden. Like, look at these polls that I just saw. What's going wrong with our country?
Precisely because I want to be as chill as possible in person.
He has to get it out.
I do have to get an outlet. Yeah. So, buddy, if you only knew.
Yeah. It's a lot. And we get frustrated with each other. Not with each other. We get frustrated with each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he and I get frustrated together. And also I get frustrated at him. So let's see. We will go on to the next part. We're only I feel like we're only 6 minutes into this effing thing.
I know. This happens every time.
Let me ask Destiny.
My friend, you know this.
Let me ask Destiny my favorite question of all my liberal friends, which is, do you know how many illegal immigrants Barack Obama deported in 8 years?
How many illegal immigrants did he deport, or did they have contact
deported, thrown out of the country?
I don't know the number of that.
Have a guess.
For when you say deport, you mean somebody that was already in the country and then they were caught in the country and removed. My guess is those numbers are always fairly low. Probably less than 1 million. I have no idea. I truly have no idea.
3 million, which is the greatest number pro rata of any president in history, and earned him the moniker in Mexico of deporter in chief. And yet, oddly, whenever I talk to my liberal friends, they never know this. They never made a fuss at the time. They were quite comfortable about that happening. And I look at what's going on the southern border now. Apparently, Biden's going down the same day as Trump on Thursday, which will be fascinating. But he hasn't been there I don't think he may have been once before in his time as president, which is insane.
You know what? It's so funny.
It's so
that gotcha. Well, Obama deported a ton of people.
First off,
first off,
the frustration that most people have with Trump is, one, talking about the border wall as if that's where undocumented immigrants come from. Two, his insane rhetoric, especially regarding how much crimes undocumented immigrants have, which is not supported by the data at all. And three, the refusal to accept asylum. That is crazy. And something largely unprecedented by most presidents that Trump took a firm stance on. That shit is wild. But also we can criticize Obama for his deportation. That's fine as well.
So here's the thing. What's funny is I don't. Destiny didn't say so. Destiny is, if there's going to be anyone who complains about the number of people that Obama deported.
Mhm.
Destiny's probably not going to be among the first because he's not that far left. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not,
Mhm.
he's not going to be someone, right or wrong, who wrings his hands about the number of people deported under President Obama. And by the way, he didn't even mention Obama. So this gotcha that Piers
Yeah.
always has in his back pocket. Well, somebody said the border, which means Destiny must like weep every night before bed when a person in the United States is deported. Ergo, I'm going to hit him with this factoid. I think that's why Destiny was so confused. Like, what does that have to do with anything? Obama hasn't been president.
Explain the 101.
Obama hasn't been president in 6 years, 7 years. What are you talking about? And that's the other thing too. He's like, all my liberal or lefty friends tend to forget this figure because it was 7 years ago and we have the memory of goldfish. Do you want to get into what conservatives forget about the border? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how Biden is deporting people at a higher rate than Trump ever did. There's a great report by the Cato Institute, libertarian think tank that everybody used to love. Well, not everybody. I've never been a fan, but definitely Stacks
good stuff
loves
on
them.
immigration.
Yeah,
they're genuinely good on immigration.
I knew it.
They're genuinely good on immigration.
So good.
They're
you know what's funny?
libertarians.
Sometimes I think to myself, sometimes I think to myself, you say too much with a certitude that is unjust, and then I say it, and then you're like, yeah, I love the Cato Institute's my favorite. But I
disagree with the Cato Institute on welfare. I agree with them on housing policies. I don't know what to tell you.
Exactly. All I heard is you love, man, you have the positions you've taken. Oh, I think Piers has a really good point here. Hitler was a great speaker. Also, the Cato Institute is like, man, the positions that you have just voluntarily taken. Yeah. But they do have a good report about immigration. And I say good because it debunks Republican talking points, which is really the only objective measure of what is good or bad in this world, whether or not it's anti-Republican. And they point out, like they fact check all these things. And President Biden has deported people at a higher rate. And there have been higher contacts at the border, as you know, and record fentanyl seizures and stuff like that. Oh, and by the way, the amount of fentanyl entering this country skyrocketed under Donald Trump, but people tend to forget that too. So what about that, Piers? What about that more recent fact?
I didn't see that on Fox News, so why would I say that? Why would I check data about things that I purport to care
and
about?
Brandon, by the way, are going to fight.
Wait, hold on. No, okay, wait, hold on. Obviously, zoning regulations are a remnant of redlining, and we should probably disband a lot of zoning regulations for the most part. There are very specific ones like upzoning or like let's not build houses next to factories. But other than that, most housing policies are generally incredibly restrictive, and we should legalize housing. Boy, I'll fight you, Brandon. Don't come at me. Libertarians are generally.
We'll pull you in, Brandon. We'll pull you in. We'll pull you in at some point.
Don't get me started on housing. That's like my number one issue.
Yeah. So Stacks is a famous NIMBY. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. He is definitely not. He's going to lose his temper. I'm just kidding.
Brandon,
we'll bring you in.
I was fine with you saying that I thought that Hitler was a great leader. Don't ever call me a NIMBY ever again in your life.
Okay, so we'll bring you in a few minutes. We're going to finish some of this out.
Insane, given how obviously problematic the southern border has become. Whichever side of the political divide you're on, would you accept that?
Would I accept that the border is a problem?
Well, not only a massive problem, but that President Biden, to date, in his tenure, has done absolutely nothing but make it worse.
I don't know about absolutely nothing but make it worse. I think one of the issues right now is Republicans are holding up funding to actually apportion more money to border security. I think that there are definitely border problems that exist right now that definitely need attention. But I think comparing it to Donald Trump, when he was able to utilize the emergency of COVID and the fact that the immigration numbers were at historic lows over the COVID period, and then to say that, well, look, he did a way better job than Biden did, where once COVID ends and then everything starts to open up again, you see a huge surge of immigrants, isn't the most fair comparison. But obviously, yes, something needs to be done with the border, of course. And I hope that Republicans approve funding in Congress for something to actually be done.
Well, Tommy, that's an interesting point where I would be critical, I think, of your position on this, because I absolutely believe that Ukraine has got to be held.
You know what I love about this? Let's see if Breda wants to pop in before we let you go. You know what I love about this?
Yeah.
Where they were talking about the border,
Uh-huh.
and Destiny made the point that, hey, if the border's so bad, then maybe Republicans should start acting in good faith with respect to border legislation. And Piers literally goes, you know, this is a great point that I would finally criticize your side of the aisle, Tommy Lauren. What about Ukraine? And just completely changes the subject. I'm like, oh, bro,
For sure.
are
Not even
you
let it.
serious? Yeah.
Because you know that response. I mean, it's Tommy Lahren. Like, what positive? He needs to make sure that she looks best, rather than Destiny, because he is essentially a political hack.
Brandon, get your butt in here. I sent you the link through
For a
Discord.
restructuring of the zoning laws, can't hate there. Beautiful. See,
Yeah,
we're all on the same page.
but you're gonna have consensus on screen with one another. There's gonna be love in the air.
We should talk more about zoning. I want to talk more about housing. I love housing. I love talking about housing.
I love houses. Nobody loves houses quite like me.
True.
You know what I love?
What's
Is
that?
we basically got through the same exact amount on that video that I did in the video that I released prior to this. There's like a whole nother 23 minutes. But it gets into like foreign policy and stuff like this.
I remember we tried watching like a 2-hour video, and we're like, we could probably spend like we will like take like 4 hours or something to watch this, and we probably got through like 20 minutes of it. We do yap quite a bit.
We do. And by we, I mostly mean you.
That's
we can't
fair.
make it three. They get 3 words out of their mouth. And you're like, here's my dissertation against it. But you also have to remember that. So Stacks has like a very, I would say, incongruent skill set in the sense that, so he's big on TikTok,
Right.
So short videos. But
Yeah.
he's also then he skips
The
over
biggest
middle
yapper.
shit. Then he goes into video essays, his YouTube channel, which he ignores. By the
I
way,
just made a script for my next video.
hey,
Okay, I'm very sorry.
stop it. So he has a video essay. It's out, or that he dropped like, I don't know, it felt like a decade ago. It's called "Is a Hot Dog a Sandwich?"
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really good. It's basically a refutation to this dipshit right wing Matt Walsh is, what is a woman?
Right. It's a
and-
good faith argument against like what is a woman from a linguistic perspective, and it's a lot about like the philosophy of language and how to contend with that idea of what genuinely is a woman. And I, please watch. It's on my YouTube video. I know it was like 5 months ago, but I did just
Oh, it
write
was
a
that
script for a new
recent,
one.
huh?
It might not have been.
So ridiculous.
It might not have been. I release TikTok videos like daily though. So if you're on TikTok, follow me there.
Yeah, so definitely. So Brandon says he'd need about 10 minutes. So I'm sure you have to go, Stacks, if you can't get
I
10
do have
minutes.
to go pretty
That's
pretty soon.
That's fine. Just that's fine. So
Sorry,
Stacks assures us that he has a life. That's not what it is. He probably has to play Magic the Gathering.
It's
something
Dungeons
like
and
that.
Dragons. I think my group is actually already here and they're waiting.
Oh, do you really have to play? Jordan
Yeah, I'm
plays.
playing
Jordan
tonight,
has
yeah.
a Friday. Why didn't you tell me that?
I did. I check our private chat. I said, hey, I gotta go pretty soon.
I'm sorry. Why didn't you tell me that before 5 minutes ago?
Well, because I love you and I like hanging out with you.
I do
don't know
not
if
feel
they're
the same
here.
way.
They're
I don't feel
usually
the same
like
way.
half an hour late, but it did start.
So Jordan
13
plays
minutes
every
ago.
Friday. And Brandon, you can still pop in because I'll chit chat with you for a bit.
Mhm.
You can come in.
I'm gonna just take a quick look just to see if people are in my living room because I don't know if they are.
Okay. Yeah. So in the meantime, I'll take him off screen. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? We'll wrap up here in about 15, 20 minutes anyway. So let's see. What'd y'all think? I mean, I thought the conversation with Piers was it was frustrating because I wish it had not been a 2v1. I wish that he had made Tommy Lauren actually respond to things in good faith and actually ask her some tough questions too. Like I said, Piers is usually a better interviewer than that. Like when I've seen him talk to like debate conversations between say Cenk Uygur and Rabbi Shmuley and stuff like that, he's usually pretty good at being a moderator, but this felt like a 2v1. It was super gross. Or it should have been a 1v1 between him and Piers. So
yeah, or throw in invite another liberal and make it a 2v2. Like, I'm fine with you being biased, just like don't try to pretend to be a moderator.
Yeah, no, 100%. So are people there?
There are people there, but we are missing one person and we don't know when they're going to get here. So we're just waiting on them. And I'm like, I'll jump off whenever they're ready. So
yeah, that's fine. At this point, like, just preemptively say your goodbye. And then if you have to dip, you have to dip.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
Let's see. Old Scotty. Destiny was shorted on time.
Yeah, I think it's just the nature of television is like they just have like half-hour segments, and it's
but that's the thing. Actually, like I know I'm not making this up. I am 99% sure I've seen Piers Morgan spar with people even recently for like an hour and a half or whatever.
Yeah, maybe.
Destiny is like he's like knocking the stuff out of the ballpark, but it seems like initially they're only giving him like he was on Patrick Bet David, the PBD podcast. That guy. And that guy only gave him like maybe an hour or something, but made him have like another guest on. I wanted it to be like it was with Kyle Kalinske or Sam Cedar, where it was like a 1v2 because PBD has his like sidekick or whatever. That would have been great. So I don't know if it's fear or what, but yeah, I could see it.
Is Brandon coming in to yell at me about housing for a little bit?
I haven't
feel jonesed.
I haven't
about
heard.
talking about housing.
Let's see.
Thank
Stacks, you were great. I will follow you from here on out. Again,
Thank
you
you
can
so
find him
much.
at Staxiums on TikTok
Pretty much everywhere.
and YouTube. He finally changed it.
I am on Twitter as well. Yeah, I'm gonna release a video pretty soon. I just made a script about myths in politics and debunking them. What are you laughing about?
Because you've been saying that for
I know.
weeks, if not
This is
months.
like I wrote a script and I was like, this sucks. I'm actually gonna completely scrap this. And then I made a second script and then I was like, this also
I'm clicking
sucks. I'm gonna
publish
completely
right now.
scrap
I'm
this.
clicking publish right now. Yeah.
And then I finally made a
Screw
third
you.
script and I was like, no, all right,
That-
this one's actually fine.
That's what it was. Old Scotty says Kevin Sorbo's wife was on PBD from Hercules back in the 90s. Patrick Bet David. That podcast I was just talking about for 5 minutes. You weren't listening. I don't know. This is why I can't talk to you.
I have D&D, okay? I can't listen
I
to
want.
you.
I wish I had my car keys in arm's reach because I guarantee I could just jingle my car keys and you'd be pawing at the camera. God, you're just eminently so dislikable.
True.
Let's see. I love. Let's see. Actual Justice Warrior, isn't it?
That was. I know that. Have I been in a debate with Actual Justice Warrior? I feel like I have, like on a WIC panel. It sounds.
I don't know
feel
if he's
like I
ever been on a
was.
WIC. I don't know if he's ever been on a WIC panel.
I feel like I had a debate with him, but I don't remember when or where. But maybe I haven't. Maybe I'm making this all up.
Probably are. Destiny should have tagged in Sam Cedar or something. Sam Cedar, he's pretty formidable. I don't know if they're buddies right now, though. I think they're on the outs.
Yeah, they had it. I remember watching a debate that they had on student debt. Well, he got in a clash with Emma Vigeland,
Vigeland,
who's like Sam Cedar second in command. So I don't know if they're buddies enough to debate together, or if they would agree on Israel and Palestine.
They definitely would not agree on Israel and Palestine. There's no question.
So that's complicated. Sometimes it's hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's complicated. The problem with Destiny is he does burn bridges with a lot of people who he could be in debates with.
No comment. But also, he actually has an upcoming podcast called The Bridges Podcast.
Oh yeah, with the Kyla, right?
Yeah.
Or is that a different one? That's Kyla, yeah.
That is Kyla, not so erudite. Yeah.
Yeah, friend of
Yeah.
the channel, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, we're
And
both
Canadian. She's friends with everybody, right? Well, no, Jordan
unfortunately.
Peterson's Canadian too.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I don't like a lot of Canadians.
Have you ever
Some
watched
Canadians are pretty
Letterkenny?
good. Yeah. I've
Phenomenal.
seen Letterkenny.
Let's see here.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have questions,
He's here.
comments, things they want to?
The final person just joined for our D&D group, so I do have to leave. We
All right,
should
peace, buddy.
we should play D&D together sometime.
We should. We will
if you
never
care
do that.
about
We
that.
will never do that. You and
Yeah.
Jordan can though. Just hit Jordan up. You know.
Yeah.
Let's play
Do you ever
D&D.
want to like stream games or anything, or do you just want to talk politics?
This is
I know you
pondering.
really like a lot of politics or a lot of games, but
This is pondering politics. Now I do have a pop culture channel that I am
Yeah.
neglecting.
have you
But
ever
eventually.
posted a video on
I
that one?
uploaded
You followed
one
that
video.
so long ago.
I uploaded one video 7 months ago about a really fascinating observation I had. Actually, real quick before you go, since
Okay.
you're a Star Wars guy.
Real quick.
Okay. So, the prophecy of the chosen one in Star Wars, right? Which says that Anakin will destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's the most prominent prophecy in the Star Wars franchise. But if you pay attention in the original trilogy, there is another low-key prophecy, which is the idea that Luke will destroy the Emperor, right?
Mhm.
So in Empire Strikes Back, if you recall, as they duel on Bespin, Vader says, Luke, you can destroy the Emperor. He has foreseen this. And the Emperor says in The Empire Strikes Back, when he's talking to Vader, he's like, there's a great disturbance in the Force. The one who destroyed the Death Star, he's the offspring of Anakin Skywalker. He could destroy us. So the Emperor and Vader both think that Luke can destroy the Emperor, which is why the Emperor fears Luke and either wants to convert or kill him.
Mhm.
Note this. The Emperor says in Empire Strikes Back, the son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi. Those are his exact words. You with
Right.
me?
Yeah. Okay.
Or he could destroy us.
Right.
What happens in Return of the
He
Jedi?
becomes a Jet.
Yes, he does. But he doesn't just become a Jedi. It is
He
the
becomes a Jedi
Emperor
Master.
himself who declares him a Jedi. When he says,
Oh, really?
when he tells Luke to strike Vader down, and Vader says, "No, you failed, Your Highness. I'm a Jedi like my father before me." The Emperor says, "So be it, Jedi." And 5 minutes later, the dude is
that's
dead.
so cool,
Buddy!
I've never noticed that. He's like, he can't be a Jedi, and then he
And
lets
you
it be
declare him a
one, and
Jedi,
that's so
and you're
cool.
dead in 5 minutes.
That's
See?
fun. I
Yeah.
like that.
You like that?
That's a good. I follow that YouTube channel. You should follow that YouTube channel. Anyway, someone was asking about where to follow me on YouTube. It's Staxiums. You
Yeah,
can
at
find it. It's
Staxiums.
youtube.com/@Staxiums. If you want to put that in somewhere so that you can follow that as a
Here,
link,
I'll
maybe.
put it right here.
But I do
Stacks.
have to leave.
Yeah, bye, buddy.
There are people in my living room right
Yeah.
now.
Honestly, they're probably having a better time without you. And just
I
pointing it out.
agree. I don't
Yeah.
know why they invited me. It's confusing every time.
Yeah. All right. Peace, buddy.
Love
Peace.
you.
I'm going to hang out with
Bye.
chat for a little while before
Sounds
I
good.
dip. See you, buddy. Bye.
Peace.
All right, let's talk smack about Staxiums now he's gone, loser. Oh, he's still here. Get out of here. So, wait, did he have to be declared a Jedi by a Sith Lord? No, I don't mean a prophecy in the sense like the Chosen One prophecy specifically, but it's fascinating to me that the Emperor foresaw this threat. Luke Skywalker is the son of Anakin Skywalker. He could destroy us. I have foreseen it. He must not become a Jedi. And then within 5 minutes of the Emperor declaring Luke a Jedi, acknowledging him as a Jedi, he's dead. Fascinating stuff. Let's see. Why not just link him in the description? Why are you all yelling at me all the time? Let's see here. YouTube.com/ God, I'm dying. This tuberculosis is going to kill me. Zacathiums. Great guy. Good person. His fiance is a lot cooler than he is. There it is, right here. Yeah. So here's Brandon. I see how it is. You didn't want to talk to him.
Oh, do I look better this time, quality wise?
Yeah, but still kind of derezed, which is interesting.
Huh. I've got my camera, my DSLR this time, so I thought.
Yeah,
it'd be
you
better.
you look a lot better. Like you look a lot more. I don't know, unpixelated, which is good.
Mhm. I'm just now realizing I probably should have dropped it a little, but oh well.
No, it's okay. No, it's all right. Here, I'll just get down like this.
There you go.
So
I'll sit up.
This is Brandon Clark with Brandon Clark, or Social Society with Brandon Clark. Again, up and coming YouTube. Wait a minute. Oh, that's hilarious. Do you all see the square on Brandon's? Is that what you see? Do you see that on Brandon's?
Oh my
face?
gosh, is that showing for you? I don't know.
That's
how to
showing
do it.
for. I thought it was just like I clicked something on my end. That's
Oh, wow.
hilarious.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. Quick fix. I don't know how to get rid
That's
of it.
okay. That's okay.
But
That's fine.
I'll just-
So we'll just get.
I'll
You
stay
just
in.
actually click a check mark here. By the way, it's just. Can I drag it? Oh no. Okay. Yeah. So listen. Obviously, we were hoping to have quick spar with Stacks, but it looks like you guys reconciled pretty closely there at the end. He's a Yimby. Housing policy is a really important name. As a matter of fact, on that YouTube channel, which you should subscribe to Brandon's and you should subscribe to Staxium's. Staxium has a video comparing housing to Magic the Gathering. You should check it out. It's fascinating stuff.
Quite the reference to make. Yeah, after he explained it a bit more, I don't think we would have had too many disagreements, especially in a pragmatic sense. Maybe if I got more in my like ideological words, if I got more into like where I really want to see housing get to, we might have disagreed a bit more, because like I do think that I would like to see profit get out of housing, but in more of a pragmatic short-term sense, I think we probably would have agreed, because I do think zoning laws need reworked a lot in terms of allowing for more affordable housing rather than allowing like
housing is insane, man. It's funny because so I live in Charlotte
and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I don't know why again, but your signal for me is collapsing. It's down to like 3 bars again. I don't know. It's almost like we're not meant to be. I don't understand what's going on here. You were fine until 30 seconds ago.
It's fate or destiny, I guess.
I see what you did there. So yeah, it's interesting because so I live in Charlotte. We have a beautiful, they call it uptown, right? It's their downtown area with all the high rises and stuff. But obviously work from home is becoming more prevalent. So I don't know what it would take, but I would think, right, instead of trying to rope everybody back in to these offices, I imagine it could be quite lucrative and would benefit a lot of people if you could convert these commercial high rises into at least include in part like residential, right, which obviously would require quite a bit of rezoning. But like I'd love to live in affordable housing in a high rise in an uptown, like in a modern big city, something like Charlotte, that'd be awesome, man. That demand will never go away because people would want to, if they could afford it, live in these high rises in those towers. But right now, a lot of it's just collecting dust because people aren't, they're not like working there anymore. So,
and in the long term, it's more cost effective in terms of having that affordable and accessible housing available versus like the cost that taxpayers have fall on them from emergency services for the homeless and things like funds that you have to pay for the homeless existing anyway, rather than just going like housing first or some sort of a policy where in other countries you see where they much more prioritize having this sort of affordable and accessible housing. It stays around and it's much better quality than you see in America, where if it's not going to make you a lot of money, the quality is going to kind of match up to that standard.
Yeah. So real quick, somebody's like the NBA shows up when I look up Brandon Clark. So yeah, I'll link it to your
hitting crossovers. That's in my day job. I play for the Pacers.
He shoots hoops. Let's see somebody else. So I just linked it in chat. You guys like and subscribe if you can, please. Make them into housing. My understanding that bathrooms are a problem. So when they do it, they make them expensive AF, talking about converting commercial real estate in city downtowns or downtown cities to residential. I don't know enough about it. It'd be funny if like the thing that's holding it up, making it not cost effective, are the bathrooms, but I suppose your Twitch stream is non-viewable because you set it at 1080p only. Folks, listen, I'm pretty young, relatively young, 32. It's still relatively young, I like to think, but I'm like so boomer when it comes to technology because I'm very, I don't know, clumsy with it. So I figure all that out. Yeah, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Let's see here. So I don't know. Here in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to log out basically. But what's up in the world of politics or your channel or any observations that you want to make?
No, I have a question that I wanted to ask you. I thought next time I got the chance to speak with you, I'll turn it into an interview. You're one of my interviews now. No.
Sure.
I do have a question I want to ask you. Outside of because I watch you guys, obviously you, Luke, David, like everyone on the left. And I always am curious as to like, where exactly people fall and what their main motives are that drive them politically. And I wanted to ask, like, outside of the realm, because, like the defending democracy or getting rid of Trump, that's the easy answer. So outside of like the whole Biden versus Trump debate, the defending democracy, not letting what happened in 2020 happen again, what is like the issue that drives you the most? Like what is like, for me, it's healthcare for sure. So what would yours be?
I don't know if I have a single definitive issue because I feel like we need to address multiple things on progressive fronts concurrently, like healthcare. So I do believe healthcare is a human right. I do believe I'm quite frankly not married to a particular outcome. I just want everybody to have subsidized healthcare. Let me put it like this. I would be happy as a clam with Medicare for all, but I also wasn't offended, as a lot of people were, with Pete Buttigieg's Medicare for all who want it. I don't care as long as people have health care. And if they can't afford it or don't want a private insurance company and they want Medicare for all, that should be an option as well. My mother died of cancer. I had to watch her die. I held her hand as she died. And if there was any reservation on my part about whether healthcare was a human right, which I don't think there was even at the time, but whatever was left evaporated. My mother had to worry briefly about how to pay for her treatments. It was brief because, unfortunately, we lived in a very community-driven neighborhood, and a lot of people turned out to donate for her treatments, which weren't all covered by insurance. And so she was stage 4 small cell lung cancer. So it was never going to happen in the first place, I suppose. But we did what we could, and people, when there was a gap, people were in a position to donate and help out. She should never, and nobody should ever have to, for a second, think, what am I going to do to save my life or prolong my life? So I do think healthcare is a human right, and I'm fine taxing the shit out of the rich to make it happen. I think that if you, some people, I think, have this view of more social democrat policies or even socialist policies, this idea that I remember hearing it once. My uncle said, socialists want the burger flipper at McDonald's to make as much as the CEO of McDonald's. And I'm like, nobody thinks that. And anyone who does think that's the fucking idiot, because yes, we understand that you don't pay everybody equally for every job. What we want, what I would argue a ethical, moral person wants, is for the burger flipper at McDonald's to not have to worry about dying in the streets. If he works a 40-hour job, he shouldn't have to worry about his health care. He shouldn't have to worry about shelter. He shouldn't have to worry about food. That's it, right? Certain things should not be so heavily commodified and so prohibitively expensive. So that's my position. I'm fine taxing whoever needs to be taxed, particularly the uber rich, to make it so that there is not a single person in this country. And then ideally, we'd like to spread it to the rest of the world, but that I don't think the United States alone could do it. But in terms of this country, where nobody is without health care. And so I don't care how we get there. Medicare for all who want it. If people are really married to their private insurance, I don't know why they would want to. To me, it's just a relic of that's all they've ever known. And if they have the option for something else, they'll quickly say, well, the hell with the private insurance company, whatever. I do think there should be universal health care. But I also think climate change is another one. We have kicked the can down the road. The science is pretty clear that we're already seeing the consequences in terms of migration. And we're going to see even more of it. Climate change needs to be dealt with. So there are like a number of issues. Voting rights, that's a big one. That's a huge one. Universal, robust voting rights.
You're frozen on my end. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry. Were you talking?
No. Can you see me?
For climate change specifically, I wanted to ask, how do you rank, how do you think Joe Biden's done specifically, where legislatively, like for me, I think legislatively he's been effective, and obviously in that transition period of trying to get to more green new energy, you can't just snap your fingers and stop drilling oil, but a lot of progressive people want to point to like the Willow Project he's done and things like that. Where would you rank him then, if that being one issue that drives you?
I mean, by definition, he has been the most pro-climate president certainly in modern U.S. history, if not all of U.S. history, because the investiture that came from the Inflation Reduction Act is infinitely greater than the next climate change investment. So by definition, if you're asking in the absolute sense, has Biden been adequate with respect to climate change? I would say probably not. But if you're comparing, I think in the more reasonable case, which is relative, he is by far the best and should get credit for that. But the Willow Project was a problem. He also approved rates for drilling and fracking permits at a higher rate than Donald Trump did during his presidency. But I also understand that, and this is where I get frustrated with a lot of people, and people who I would say are, your camera shut off.
Hold on, did that? I don't know why that just. Am I back on?
No, you're rainbow right now. Now you're on.
There we go. I don't know why that just happened. I think it might just be a time thing because of the cord. I'll have to do some tinkering with it, obviously. But go on as you were saying.
So yeah, relatively Biden's been pretty pretty good, but there's still a lot of work to do. But in terms of, you have to remember that I think a lot of people tend to forget this. And I think it's also part of the reason why we're seeing AOC, for example, become more quote unquote establishment in the eyes of so many people, because a lot of people look at government offices purely from an activism lens and not from an administrative and government lens as well. There is never going to be an activist who takes a government position and then wants to do well in that government position, who then is still like an unvarnished activist. Once you're there and you have the levers of power and you understand how the math works, the fact that you need majorities in both chambers of Congress, you got to get something through the Supreme Court or whatever, you tend to make certain compromises and certain short-term defeats for long-term successes. So like when I look at Biden granting these drilling and fracking permits at a higher rate than did Trump, he was also dealing with the immediate problem of energy independence in the United States and gas prices, right? So he had to deal with that. He granted the permits at a higher rate. Now, energy producers like Exxon and others weren't taking advantage of them because they were exploiting the high demand with low supply to maximize their profits. But Biden has to basically pull multiple levers and do multiple concurrent obligations and priorities. So I understand, I suppose, how he could simultaneously, in the short term, try to prop up oil and energy producers so that we could lower gas prices, reorient our energy independence, which was an immediate short-term kitchen table issue. Like, it was hurting Americans, the cost of gas and other things as well, the cost of energy. He had to address that. There's no scenario where he can just say, no, fuck you guys, you're just going to have to deal with this for the time being, and also do things like the Inflation Reduction Act, where he can invest quite a bit in climate. So basically, Biden has my sympathy, where he has to do some pretty shitty things in the short term on climate while also doing some awesome things like the Inflation Reduction Act as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I want to clarify because I saw a comment that said, is this guy anti-Biden? I am very much pro-Biden. I was just asking to ask. I'm not anti-Biden. I'm not that far left. I'm more pragmatic, I think, in my beliefs. I support a lot of what Biden has done, especially in terms of climate change. I think if you look at going forward in terms of how he set us up, he's definitely put us in a better position transitionally for climate change than Trump did or would have, with like the legislation, like you talked about, passing appointees, people that he put in these positions. Like Trump pretty much would have elected coal miners to look over his climate change policy is the effect we would have had from him. And Biden's had other successes that I like too, like the bipartisan gun bill. I like how he's expanded Medicare to more seniors. There's plenty of wins even for, and on my channel, I try to push this for people who are more progressive and more far left, that there's plenty of wins for even people who are to the left of Joe Biden to look at and say, I can get on board with this, especially when the alternative is someone very far to the right.
Yeah. So that's how I try to look at it too, in the sense that I think compared to a lot of people, I try to remember that governing is harder than activism. It really is, because with activism, you don't have to make any sort of uncomfortable moral compromises or real politique, right? But the fact of the matter is, in our system of government, probably in any system of government, but certainly here, it is institutionally conservative, right? So, this is something where I constantly complain to other people on the left who are more moderate than me when they say things like, we just really need to be as bipartisan as possible, and we need to basically coddle the Republicans more. And I'm like, guys, you all understand how good Republicans have it in this country. I mean, Republican politicians. This is the game of politics for Republicans is you play it on easy mode with all the cheats enabled. You have separation of powers, you have federalism, which by the way, these are great concepts, but inherently they are conservative because power is not concentrated. In order to make change, you need power. So when you have multiple levers of power and power is dispersed, that is inherently a conservative principle, right? So but right out the gate, the left, in terms of making change, progressives in terms of making change, have a harder job because it's just easier to keep things the way they are, the way in our current system. That inherently advantages conservatives, but it doesn't stop there. Then you have things like the Electoral College. You have the fact that in the United States Senate, it's effectively 50-50, but the Democrats represent 40 million more people than the Republicans because things are heavily lopsided towards land rather than population. Then you say, well, that's the Senate. The House of Representatives is where population matters. Well, no, except Republican gerrymandering has made it so that Republicans are very competitive for the House of Representatives. They currently control the House of Representatives. So again, another advantage, Democrats. You look at the media ecosystem, it favors Republicans because the biggest mainstream news network is Fox News. They're ideologically towards the right. The mainstream media favor sensationalism and clicks over ideology. So they'll throw Biden under the bus, even though I'm sure most CNN reporters will vote for him. And we could just go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. So when you step into that system as somebody on the left or liberal or progressive, you just have the hardest fucking job imaginable because you have to navigate these realities, whether we like it or not. Like I have to bite my tongue because I don't want to be that guy who picks fights with the left, even though the left gets on my freaking nerves on Twitter all the time, because the right is just objectively worse and more dangerous. And I'm finite, so I have to keep my eyes on the prize. But do you know how annoying it is every time I see somebody on Twitter say, I'm not going to vote for Biden? Why? Well, because there's a lot of anti-LGBTQ things going on in Florida right now. And there are under Ron DeSantis. Well, yeah, but why didn't Biden stop it? What do you want him to do? What do you want him to do? He should just park a tank outside the governor's mansion in Florida. That's where I'm like, how about we elect more Democrats? Well, that's not going to solve all the problems because a lot of Democrats are feckless and cowardly. Yes, and that's also why we should push for ballsy, brave Democrats, not antiques like Dick Durbin, people who are willing to like roll up their sleeves and start slugging it out politically with Republicans. Yes, but there's no universe in which things get better with Republicans in power. So all of which is to say, yes, my immediate mission in life is to elect as many Democrats as possible. I think there's no room in this country, in my opinion, I've said this very boldly, there is no room in this country for an elected Republican, as far as I'm concerned. The entire party needs a timeout because they have either actively aided and abetted fascism or they have just rolled over for it. They cannot be trusted. They need a couple of election cycles where every elected office in this country is occupied by a Democrat. So the Republicans can recalibrate and think, okay, do we want to participate in the system in good faith or not? But in terms of non-Trump, non-democracy related issues, it's a bevy of things. It's climate change, it's healthcare, it's labor rights. That's a big one too. Reducing that wealth gap. It's all kinds of things. It's voting rights. That's a huge one. It is LGBTQ protections as well. So there's just not one standout for me. I'm not a single issue voter, except for get Republicans out of power, and then everything else is something that we have to concurrently make progress on.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I work with liberals too. I want liberals to be the right side of politics. I don't think Republicans should have any place in a political sphere. And I try to tell that to more progressive or left-leaning people all the time when they're saying, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden because of this issue or this issue. And when you go down the list, Trump is worse on each one of those issues, no matter what it is. Right now, the popular one is obviously Israel and Palestine. And Trump defunded UNRWA, like for his whole presidency for 4 years, like had it defunded. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem, which is also Holy Land in Islam, like I commented earlier, only really furthered the tensions rather than brought any peace in the area. And you can go down the list of any issue that lefties are saying, there's no reason I can support Biden for this. And it's like, well, he's still better than Trump is on those issues. And then there's also plenty of wins that you can point to as well. It kind of comes down to arena for most people and what's going to appeal to them the most.
Yeah, 100%. And again, people are pointing out, again, public education, that's obviously one as well. I mean, just there's so many things that we have to do, and responsible people who govern can't, you can't like rank order issues and say, I'm going to not address all these other issues at all. I'm going to focus all my political capital on this one thing. You don't have the luxury of that when you're dealing with the management of a nation, certainly a nation this size, right? You don't have the luxury of that. You have to juggle all these things at once. And that's why I'm not saying there's not utility in having that group on the left who's always demanding more. I'm never saying settle. Never saying settle. So it's like if I have 10 non-conservatives, I guess I would want 2 of them constantly going, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? But I also feel like we have to acknowledge progress when it's made. And so it's like a carrot and stick dynamic. And so like Democrats very often get on my nerves. Dick Durbin's a great example. The senator from Illinois, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, he infuriates me because he's feckless. They should be trying to cram every judicial vacancy, like a liberal or progressive, into every goddamn vacancy that they have. Mm-hmm. And they've done a pretty good job, but they've also kept some things in place which allow bad faith Republicans to stymie them. Like there's this notion called the blue slip, and you should definitely check this out. It's basically this informal veto that senators have over their states. It's not written into the Constitution. It's just a tradition that's persisted for decades. So if President Clark comes to the Senate and says, hey, there's a vacancy in North Carolina, Senator Josiah's state, and I, as the president of the United States, I get to make these federal appointments. Senator Josiah can say, President Clark, I don't like your appointment. I don't like your nominee. Here's a blue slip. I'm vetoing it effectively. And Democrats have allowed that tradition to continue, even though Republicans under Donald Trump shredded the tradition for district court judges, or circuit court judges rather. So they could say, well, it doesn't matter what Senator Josiah wants. President Clark can just put in whoever he wants in that vacancy. Democrats won't do that for district court judges, right? Which would allow Biden to put more appointments in. And the reason that we have Judge Aileen Cannon, a Trump appointee, presiding over that documents case, the case was randomly assigned to her in Florida, but there were vacancies in Florida, right? So if Democrats had just been able to cram enough judges in, then probabilistically somebody else would have been assigned the goddamn case. You see what I'm saying? So it's like all the chickens come home to roost, and it's like, you ask Durbin about it. Durbin's like, well, I mean, if we do it, then Republicans will do it. They already did it to you.
Republicans are going to do it regardless when they get in. So it's like Democrats should at least return the favor when they get the chance. But a lot of it is like, they're like, always hesitant. And then they pass the ball back to Republicans, and then boom, they do it again.
Yeah, 100%. And listen, I'm not saying be reckless about it. I'm not saying that. I think that, for example, I'll give, again, credit where it's due. Biden has gotten a lot more done bipartisanly than I ever thought he would. But it's also, he's hit a brick wall here, because now that this particular type of Republican controls the House of Representatives, there is no hope for a bipartisan solution now for anything. So I don't know. It's complicated. I have very strong feelings about it, and I try to temper them. I try not to swing left, even when other people on my side annoy me. Brianna Joy Gray is a great example. I don't like her when she is a cowardly proponent of accelerationism. She says that there's no difference between Trump and Biden. She said famously during the 2016 election cycle that the Supreme people were overstating the importance.
You froze on my end again. Are we coming back? Let me see. Am I frozen too? Or is it just him? I can't tell. Is it just him, or is it me too? I'm still here? Okay, well, this is my show now. I'm taking over. Welcome to Pondering Politics with Brandon Clark. No, I'm kidding. I don't know what happened to Josiah. I guess he needed a little break. He's taking a breather. Are we back? Oh, it really is just me now. Okay, guys, we're gonna be pondering politics for the next hour. I don't know like what to do necessarily. I don't want to end it if he wanted to keep the stream going, but I don't want him to think I'm trying to take his show over either. And then my camera, it's all the stops, guys. Everything's happening at once. What can happen will happen. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong. I really don't know what to do here. Like, am I supposed? I don't want to keep talking and him think that I'm out here stealing his show. But what if I end it and he tries to come back? You know what it was? How great my points were. The articulate nature of my points made him rage quit, because what we were doing was we were debating. We definitely weren't agreeing, right? We totally weren't agreeing. We were debating, and the nature of my points, he had to go. I understand. I would too if I was clearly arguing with someone who was making as great points as I was. I don't think Trump can challenge Biden in voting numbers at all. I think that just in the nature of America, more people are going to vote Democrat. It's just in terms of how the electoral college is structured, how things are gerrymandered. It's about getting the votes where they're needed to get the delegates that you need to win. And just think of it like being given the show. Exactly. Yeah. Just like in 2016, how Trump won without winning the popular vote. I don't think he wins on a popular vote, especially with how divisive Trump is. You kind of have to be able to appeal to independents and moderates if you're going to win the popular vote, right? And Trump is never going to do that. He's going to win MAGA. MAGA is insulated in these really rural areas. Also, he does better generally with, I think, the less educated rural voters. So in these areas, he's going to win. And in some areas, in some states, those are going to get him more delegates than say like the big cities in which liberals are going to dominate the votes. And that's why you see historically Democrats, especially when there's higher voter turnouts, Democrats do better. That's why Republicans are against things like mail-in voting. They're against things that increase the access because they want less voters, because with less voters, historically, Republicans do better. I don't know if I think Nikki Haley could beat Biden, but I do think that she stands a better chance than Trump. I think that the fact that Republicans try to spin it as like, oh, Democrats are so scared of Donald Trump. No, I think if anything, Nikki Haley appeals to moderates and independents. She's younger. I also think she's batshit crazy. Don't get me wrong. Terrible opinions. I don't agree with Nikki Haley at all. But I think that the way she could appeal to moderates and independents poses more of a threat than Donald Trump does. It's just the cult-like following that Trump has in the Republican Party. It's going to be hard to beat him in a primary. But I do think Biden beats Trump. I think especially if he focuses on issues like abortion, if he focuses on issues where Democrats are clearly better, and if we adopt more of Gavin Newsom's strategy. I've talked with political strategists on my channel who have also spoke to this, where they kind of use the facts to go more on the offensive rather than trying to justify their positions. You see a lot of Democrats doing more explaining than attacking, while you see Republicans doing nothing but pointing fingers, and what people are receptive to are what they can relate to. So when they see Republicans constantly pointing fingers at, look at Democrats, Josiah, you're back. Yeah. I'm sorry. I hope you didn't think.
Hang on. So I lost Wi-Fi and internet here. So I got to kill this thing. But hey, it's good chatting with you, buddy.
Awesome. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't mean to steer. I didn't know if you wanted me to stay on till you got back or not.
No, you're fine.
I appreciate you having me on.
You're good. Guys. Folks, appreciate you all watching. Hopefully we'll not run into internet issues the next time. But thank you. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, everybody.